2020 has been a turbulent year by everyone's standards. But for jockey Hollie Doyle, it's been memorable for all the right reasons.
Here's Hollie Doyle on Dutu Gamuno, and inevitably, almost, she's going to get there.
100 yards to cover. Rainbow Dreamer keeping them all at bay under an enterprising ride from Hollie Doyle.
Majestic Nor and Hollie Doyle who lead by 2 lengths inside the final furlong. It's Majestic Nor who's coming home in front from Black Lotus. Majestic Nor wins it.
It was the year she broke through to the top tier in racing and became known on the world stage.
It's Mistress Nelly who's got the lead for Hollie Doyle. History in the making here. Mistress Nelly is out in front. Hollie Doyle for a 5-timer. Can she just hold on? Yes, she can.
Harmony and Bliss. Hollie Doyle throwing everything at him over the final stages. He'll be 2 from 2. Harmony and Bliss for Hollie Doyle.
Trushan enters the final furlong with a throwing advantage. It's Progressive staying horse. Trushan wins the QIPCO British Champions Long Distance Cup in the hands of Hollie Doyle.
We're here at Lingfield Park to find out more about this extraordinary athlete. So Hollie, this year has been incredible for you. It's been a really difficult year for everybody watching. It's been very, very turbulent, but for you, this has been the year you've really hit the big time. How has it been in these strange circumstances to be so successful?
It's been really different. Obviously, I can't complain. It's been the best year of my life, but it has, you know, with all the success, it has been very hard as well to adapt to the changes that we've had at the races and, you know, not knowing what's happening from day to day with all the protocols and everything like that. But yeah, I think racing's done a great job as a whole to have kept the show on the road in the way that it has.
I mean, the first elite sport to get back up and running in June, which was something, and of course it enabled you guys to get back to work. And it is a relentless schedule. That was just one thing I wanted to explain to people who maybe don't follow racing closely and they don't understand. You know, if you're a boxer, you build up to a fight. If you're a footballer, a game, but you've got your team around you. Just for people that don't know about racing, what does your year entail?
This year in particular has been relentless. Since we started back racing, I don't think there must have been 1 or 2 days off. We race every day. You know, we have fixtures every day up and down the country. You know, last race could be 8:30, so it's we don't have time to recover, but it's something that our bodies are adapted to, thankfully.
It's not a job, it's a way of life.
That's it, yeah, it's not my job, it's my life.
You've obviously had a really busy year, but I just want to wind the clock back, because for anybody watching that doesn't know Hollie Doyle, how did all this start? Were you a pony rider? Did you go to pony club? What kicked it all off?
I grew up in Herefordshire. You know, it's quite rural around there, and in the middle of nowhere we lived. I grew up riding ponies. My both parents rode as jockeys, and my grandparents bred Arabian horses, so I've always been around horses. It was for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a jockey, and there was never any other option for me, so I'm glad it's worked out all right, because I don't know what I would have done.
It's quite interesting, because sometimes when you speak to musicians, for example, that have really hit the big time, everybody's like, wow, you're almost like an overnight sensation, but they'll tell you they've been playing bars and clubs for 10 years before they got noticed. Do you feel it was like that for you?
Yeah, I mean, people probably think I came onto the scene about 2 years ago, and I have been, you know, these last 2 years of when I've really, you know, gone to the next level as such. But you know, there were many years before that where I was, you know, trying to dig deep to, you know, improve as a rider and get where I want to be now. It didn't happen overnight, and maybe starting out when I was 16, I thought it was going to, and yeah, when I took my apprentice licence out, I was a small fish in a very big pond.
So tell us about that first winner. Where was it and what did that feel like?
It was my first ever ride.
No.
Yeah, at Salisbury. When I was 16, I was still at school. We didn't expect it to win. It was a big price, and obviously won. And it's something that I felt like I was waiting my whole life for. It sounds stupid because I was 16, but it's something that I'd wanted for so long before that, that I was just... Oh, it was the best feeling in the world.
And I suppose in a way it's a double-edged sword if you ride a winner on your first ride, because there is no going back then.
No, I had people, you know, had very high expectations of me from then onwards, and I was underachieving for my first few years because I wasn't good enough, and that's all it was. And you know, luckily I improved as a rider, and it was really frustrating time because I wanted to, you know, I was amongst my friends that I pony raced with, Tom, who were all excelling, and I was still in the same place. And I was getting really disappointed and frustrated, and it was no one's fault, but I was just not good enough at the time. So it took me a few years for things to come together, and it's come together all right now.
And it's like talent, isn't it? You can have talent, but that's not enough. You need the hard yards and the graft as well. So what did you do between that first winner, which obviously really set the pulse racing, and you thought, this is what I really want, to you then feeling a little more established?
You know, I had to work very hard to kind of get the rides, and I was getting the rides, but nothing was working out for me. I moved to Richard Hannon's maybe when I was 17 or 18, and from then onwards things started to really pick up for me. He gave me plenty of opportunities, which with opportunities your riding develops, and it started to, the curve started to go upwards from that point.
You mentioned Richard Hannon's. There are a few better yards to be at for an apprentice. They've produced champion apprentices in the past. How did you get your foot in that door?
At Richard Hannon's, you get thrown in amongst everyone else. You know, it's survival of the fittest. And I literally left school and I race rode straight away. I rode ponies, but I hadn't any experience riding thoroughbreds or riding much work. I spent a bit of time in America in between the move to Richard Hannon's. And I learnt a lot there, but it wasn't until I went to Hannon's and I rode proper pieces of work. I rode all the yearlings, you know, we ride a lot of yearlings, and it really teaches you to ride and toughen up.
Do you think, as somebody who's sort of very polite and seemingly sort of quiet and small, that maybe people underestimated your inner steel?
Maybe, yeah. You know, people probably look at me and think I'm, you know, small and weak, but you know, you've just got to prove to everyone else that you're not that.
And who would have been your role model then when you were the kid riding in pony races, or when you started out as an amateur? Who did you look to and think, I want to be like that person?
I used to really look up to Kathy Gannon at the time. I thought she was really hardy and she's such a strong rider, and obviously Ryan Moore was a big flag bearer for me.
So they were like really important role models for you. Do you then take on board and realise how much of a role model you are for youngsters looking at the television and watching and thinking, I want to be like Hollie?
It's only been the last few months really that I've noticed that. I've had a lot of messages and people asking for advice, which is really lovely, because I want to be someone that young people can approach and not feel intimidated by, because I can remember when I first started out, I used to feel quite not, intimidated, or I felt like not many people wanted to help, and I would hate for anyone else to have that feeling.
Do you feel that it's, racing is an unusual sport, isn't it? That yes, you are the athlete, but you need the horses as well to take you to the top level. Do you feel that makes it a little more cutthroat because just you isn't enough?
Yeah, I mean, you can, train and be the best rider in the world, but unless you've got a nice horse underneath you, you're not going to win, are you? So there are many variables.
There are plenty of variables, and the way things have been in the past, and thankfully that has changed very much now, is that quite a few owners weren't keen on putting females up on their horses. Did you ever meet any of that resistance?
To be honest, not that I know of. I don't know if I'd have been told or not whether that was the case, if someone didn't want me, but not that I know of. But to be honest, when I was starting out, I wouldn't have blamed anyone to not want to use me. People want the best available, and now I've improved, I don't seem to have any issue with anyone.
And of course, what people might not realise is that it costs as much to have somebody who's had one ride as to have someone who's had thousands of ride your horse. So you do have to step up and say, this is something I'm capable of. So you had the jockey coach. You said you were, you're obviously small. What else did you do between then and becoming the athlete you are now to make yourself as good and better than a lot of the rest?
I made plenty of use of Oaksey House when I moved to Hungerford. When I was at Richard Hannon's, I used to use the gym in Tidworth, and I used to try and train myself, do a lot of deadlifting and other weights, but I was kind of finding that I wasn't progressing. But when I went to Oaksey House, I got given a personal trainer. He's called Gavin Egan, and since I joined him, I've improved leaps and bounds with my fitness. it's great to have someone there that understands and points you in the right direction, because I need someone, you know, doing that for me.
Well, I guess that's they train in order to train athletes as well. And is that something you have plenty of time for? Do you have time to still fit in all this fitness training?
To be honest, at the moment I'm trying to fit it in when I can. I did have like a schedule last year, trying to fit it in between racing, but this year has just been absolutely madness. And I've been doing it when I can, but you know, come January, February, I'll be hitting it hard again to get that base back for the year ahead.
Now, I do a bit of training at a very low level, and when I heard the weights that you were able to lift and saw you do the most extraordinary box jump I've ever seen in my life, I felt absolutely pathetic in comparison. Just give us an idea of the sort of weights that you are deadlifting.
I think 110 I can deadlift, but that took me a long time to get to that. You know, it's taken, you know, a year and a half to be able to get to that point, and it's something that the more you do, the easier you find it, I think.
So you work really hard on the fitness and the strength, and that's obviously started to pay dividends. Did you feel that that made you a more complete rider?
Yeah, definitely, but you know, I lost my confidence a bit. I didn't believe that I was good enough. I was starting to believe that, but when I started doing the gym and lifting all these weights, I realised actually I am just as strong as everyone else and I can do this, and then it translated in my riding, and then my confidence grew, which really helped.
So you can deadlift over twice your body weight, which is quite incredible, and things have really happened for you, particularly this year, including of course a high profile retainer with an owner, and they're not easy to come by. How much of a boost was that for you?
That was a massive boost. I couldn't believe that they wanted to retain me. Obviously they, you know, Derby winning owner, Ahmed Al Sagar. It's great to have a bit of security, because I always feel like you know, I'm just trying to cling on to what I've got, and you know, things can, you know, the tables can turn so quickly in racing, but it's nice to have that bit of security there and to have horses that you're guaranteed to ride.
And of course he was very instrumental in your magnificent day at Windsor with your 5-timer. That must have been really special.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I rode him a nice winner on extra elusive. Yeah, for 5 different trainers as well. That was yeah, a day to remember.
Did you realise as the day was going on the enormity of what you were achieving?
I'm a pretty laid back person. It wasn't until I got home that I'd realised by everyone else's reactions that yeah, it was a big deal. And obviously you know, I'm really grateful and I appreciate all the success, but yeah, it was a day that I'll never forget. And
of course this is when national news started to notice you, and really obviously the Royal Ascot winner propelled you as well. I mean, that's a special meeting. How did it feel for you riding your first Royal Ascot winner in these unusual circumstances?
It was the best feeling in the world. I was in my own little world at the time, you know, crossing the line, and it didn't dawn upon me until after of what could have been if we had the crowds. Yeah, but you know, I can't complain. I was just very grateful for the day.
As they race on inside the final furlong, Deja joining West End Charmer, but Scarlet Dragon from the rear of the field has come flying through down the outside of Deja. Scarlet Dragon puts his nose in front. Beautiful ride. Scarlet Dragon wins. Scarlet Dragon and Hollie Doyle punching the air.
Now, appetite for women's sport has really grown, but this is different. Do you feel that you've broken down barriers to help women jockeys be the norm?
I think so, maybe. Not so much me individually, but I think I've proven that if you want something so badly, you should be able to go out there and get it. Racing is a sport that you can do that with. Not many others you can, I don't think, but yeah, with hard work and, you know, determination, I think you can achieve whatever you want. And it's easy to make up excuses and try and blame different aspects, but I think if you want something, you can go and get it.
Let's talk through some of your racing milestones then, because you started 2020 really well, and then of course lockdown. How did that affect you mentally? Particularly, you mentioned your partner Tom Marquand a little earlier, with him riding in Australia.
Yeah, it was hard because Tom was actually in Australia for quite a lot of lockdown, So I was on my own, but it was fine. I just kept really busy. I struggled to kind of chill out and relax, which wasn't a bad thing because I managed to keep really fit because we're both pretty active. And when Tom came back, we were out doing a lot of cycling and things like that, which killed most of the day. So I felt like I came out of lockdown probably fitter and stronger than ever.
And what about watching him ride those Group 1s, his first Group 1 wins, when it was something obviously you wanted so much for yourself? But of course you must have been thrilled to see him do that. Did it spur you on more?
Yeah, you know, I've always kind of been, you know, a few lengths behind Tom throughout my career, and what he's achieved has made me want it even more because I've experienced everything alongside him, and it made me, you know, it's made me want to do it even more.
And did you think when you were watching him ride a Dabe in Australia in the early part of the year that your Group 1 wouldn't be too far behind?
No, I didn't think. You know, I hadn't even ridden a Group 1. You know, a horse capable of winning a Group 1 in my career yet. So this year I got aboard some nice horses, and you know, for it to have been on Glen Shield, which has been such a flag bearer for our yard, it was the most incredible day.
Well, this ride gave you a Ride of the Year nomination. It was quite extraordinary and you got plenty of plaudits for it. What went through your mind when you flashed past the post?
I didn't think I'd won. I never got that, you know, if you've ridden a big winner you get that burst of adrenaline straight away and elation, but I never got it because I genuinely didn't think I'd won, and until they called my name out, my number, sorry, and hence the reaction everyone got because I was so surprised.
Oh gosh, I mean, so the Royal Ascot winner, 5 winners at Windsor, you've ridden the first Group winner. That must have felt like a changing of the tide, did it? The first Group winner.
That really felt like a kind of pivotal moment because I went into the season thinking, right, I need to ride a Group winner. I've ridden plenty of listed winners. I'm getting on good horses now, and to have ridden my first Group winner for Mr. Oppenheimer, and Ed Vaughan, who's been very good to me, let me keep the ride on Dame Malio, was unbelievable. And she then gave me my first Group 1 ride in Germany. So that filly has been, you know, pretty good to me.
Really instrumental in your career. So then, of course, you start getting the opportunity to ride in big festivals abroad, and your first Breeders' Cup, what was that like?
That was a great experience. I went over for my boss. Obviously, we didn't have any luck, but you know, every little trip I've done, I've learnt a lot from. Although it being there for one ride or 2 days, you know, you learn a hell of a lot. You know, and that's something that I think to be a good jockey, you need to travel the world.
And then obviously a completely different environment, but you broke new ground with the Hong Kong Jockeys Championship, of course, and the winner. How were you received there?
Incredible, you know, the Hong Kong Jockey Club do a great job. I was really surprised to have been invited on this trip with the likes of Ryan and William Buick and Tom. You know, to have been selected alongside them was just a massive honour. I was really determined. I really wanted to ride a winner out there and prove that I can ride alongside the elite, and to have got that winner meant quite a lot to me.
And it must have been a serious experience because I think you were flown over by private jet, the pair of you, weren't you?
Yeah, obviously with the COVID, and I think part of the agreement was that we had to have a private jet because they didn't want us mixing with anyone. So that was a once in a lifetime experience.
It might not be a once in a lifetime.
Not, but I'd be struggling to get that experience again.
Well, you're building up here. I mean, last year, of course, you broke the record for a number of winners for a female jockey in a year. You've absolutely kicked that out of the park this time round. You know, to hit that sort of figures that you're hitting this time round, did you ever believe that would happen?
Not this time round. Obviously, I want to aim to beat last year's record every year, but this year was kind of I thought it was a bit of a write-off. Coming into the year, and things just excelled, you know, from week in, week out, things got better and better throughout the year. So yeah, it's been an incredible year, but like I've said, I don't want it to be my first and last incredible year. I need to keep building.
As they straighten up now for the judge, it's Campeo the leader. Darwell Lion has made up a tremendous amount of ground on the outside. Campeo in front though. Here's Darwell Lion and Hollie Doyle. Up the inside is Latihati. These three are drawing clear. Darwell Lion looks a really difficult ride, but Hollie's mastered him. And this is going to be 150. And a great piece of horsemanship from Hollie Doyle. Magnificent ride on Darwell Lion.
So you're building. You've had a magnificent year, despite 11 weeks in lockdown with no racing. What about going forward? Because the champion jockey, to say that you'd have been competing to be champion jockey must have seemed a pipe dream not very long ago.
It wasn't ever even considered, 12 months ago, but off the back of this year, you never know what can happen. You can't predict what's going to happen, but year in, year out, I'll always be trying my hardest, so it's just whether I land in that position or not.
So champion jockey, obviously, as an athlete is what you aspire to be, but obviously this year you've also been given numerous recognitions for your work as well. How does that make you feel? Do you embrace it? Do you feel embarrassed? What emotion does that stir?
I just feel grateful and humbled that people are kind of recognising things. It's been a great year.
I mean, Sunday Times Sportswoman of the Year, joining a list of illustrious female athletes, Sportswoman of the Year at the SJA British Sports Awards, HWPA Flat Jockey of the Year. You've been nominated for 4 Leicesters, and of course that Sports Personality of the Year 3rd must have been a very special occasion for you.
Yeah, it was special. When you're stood there alongside the other athletes that I was there with, it makes you have to pinch yourself, and I still feel like I felt 5 years ago. Not a lot for me has changed outside of my racing, and I just feel like I'm doing my job.
And when you were awarded that prize, you said you'd done it for racing rather than for yourself. What did you mean by that?
I think racing just struggles to aim at a wider audience, maybe.
No, I can understand, because obviously if Lewis Hamilton walks down the street, he's going to get mobbed. Jordan Henderson walks down the street, he's going to get mobbed.
Yeah.
And the same could apply, to Tyson Fury, Stuart Broad, Ronnie O'Sullivan, the people that you were up there with. But with the greatest respect, if Hollie Doyle walks down the street,
you'd only have the top kind of 2 or 3 jockeys. You've got the Frankie and the APs, but other than that, I think it's hard to kind of get out there what goes on behind the scenes in racing, and I think it's people don't realise what goes into it.
So describe 2020, if you can, in one word.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I think we'll take crazy. What do you hope 2021 holds?
A bit more crazy. No, I hope it. I hope I can continue my success and get on some more nice horses and travel the world.
And in the meantime, the day job continues.
Yeah, the day job continues every day.
Well, it's a life you're living well, Hollie. Thank you so much for talking to us, and keep smashing those totals and riding those winners.
Thank you.